Strategy Corner, a show intended to equip you with the business principles to help you become the leader your organization requires. Our guests from top business schools, renowned consultancy firms, and forward-thinking leaders and executives will provide you with the contemporary business insights and principles to help you successfully navigate the complex world of business. And now, here's your host, Glamorous.
Hello and welcome to Strategy Corner. I'm your host, Glamorous. Entrepreneurship has become a very important aspect in our society. You get to become your own boss, you dictate your own terms. But is it as glamorous as it is portrayed to be? Dudu Msomi, the founder and CEO of Busara Leadership Partners, a strategic advisory and consultancy firm, shares her experience on entrepreneurship.
If you know you do not have a real need that you're trying to fulfill, you don't have a market, then what are you trying to do? So to call yourself an entrepreneur, I don't see the point.
Dudu, thank you so much for joining our podcast.
My pleasure.
You wrote a very interesting article called Entrepreneurship is not for sissies. But before we get to that, what is it that you're looking forward to in 2018, either career-wise, politically, some trends that you're following?
Well, I have this thing which I call energy words or energy phrases. So for 2018, mine is follow through. Follow through. So my commitment to myself is to follow through, because sometimes you have great ideas, and when I think of all the ideas I've had and how many of them I follow through on, it's quite disappointing. So my commitment to myself this year is to follow through. So I'm looking forward to 31st of December 2018, looking back and seeing whether I lived up to that. In terms of just our country, I'm hoping that we will have more focus on the individual and not so much on the government, just for us to take control of our own lives and to see how we can make South Africa better. So I'm hoping to have part of that with the work that I do in personal leadership, to try and encourage people to lead themselves and to find opportunities despite obstacles.
I have to say, we actually used your mantra, follow through, with all the emails that we harassed you with to get to the studio. Well,
luckily, it doesn't take much convincing when I find enthusiastic individuals who are trying to build something. I feel very honored to be asked, and also I think it's a blessing for me to share my time and to share, because really it's only through sharing knowledge and wisdom that we become strong as a people. So I'm very passionate about Africans. I'm very passionate about South Africa. And I think the more we share our knowledge, the stronger we are in terms of as a race and a nation.
And we actually do appreciate the time and effort that...
My pleasure.
Just for a courtesy for our listeners, some people may not know who you are. Do you want to give our listeners a little bit about yourself, your background?
Well, I don't like talking much about myself. What I do enjoy sharing is the fact that for those that don't know Zulu, my name means comforter, and I take it very seriously to be a comfort. Some people don't think I comfort them because I bring discomfort, but hopefully I do it in a positive way in trying to make them move forward. And even myself, I think the one thing that I enjoy is being comfortable with discomfort, because I think this is how we grow. This is how we progress as a human species and as individuals. In terms of myself, I'm a strategist. I'm passionate about strategy, and strategy really for me is about how do we move from one point to the next point in order to achieve our visions, whether it's corporate visions or personal visions. That drives me. What drives me as well is compassion. I enjoy being a human being. I enjoy being compassionate about other people's experiences and seeing how I can make their journeys fulfilling and special. The one thing I also enjoy is my dog. I have a dog called Foxy Brown. He's a Dachshund, a love of my life. He's 17 this year, so he's had a good life. And then my other passion is my mother. So she is...
Does she live with you?
No, she's a very independent woman. She lives in Durban. I live in Johannesburg.
Okay.
But obviously, I'm a global citizen, so I live everywhere. And I enjoy my mother. I am honored that she's still in the world with me. And she has been a great role model in terms of encouraging studying. So even now, at her age, she still studies.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was not always good. When I was doing my honors at Natal, she was doing her masters. Same campus.
That must have been
Luckily, I was staying in and she was coming in whenever. Yeah, I enjoy being a Msomi. That's one thing you may pick up about me. So whenever I meet any other Msomi, I get very excited. And a lot of people say we seem to be similar. We seem to be very passionate about strategy. So even if they're not practicing strategists, we're very passionate about education. So when you're not passionate about education, so we're like, really? We are claim kind of thing. So that's me.
So the gist of our conversation will pretty much be on entrepreneurship and business sustainability. So back to the article that you wrote. What did you mean that entrepreneurship is not for sissies?
Well, in the South African context, sissy means it's not an easy path. You kind of have to have some. I can't use the word.
It's a podcast. Eh? It's a podcast, so you're welcome.
You have to have the balls or the tits in order to get into this space. But really, the thing is, nothing is guaranteed. You can be driven by passion. You can be driven by a real need. You can be having the best product, the best service, but there's no guarantee that your business will succeed, nor that it will be smooth sailing. So it's very important to appreciate that from the beginning, which is why I say entrepreneurship is not for sissies. You have to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. So that's my belief when it comes to entrepreneurship.
So at the moment you run your own consulting firm. Was entrepreneurship always something that you wanted to do as a young person? Yeah,
well, I've always said I want to be paid for how I use my brain. I never knew what that would be. So from when I started my career, I then discovered that I actually enjoy business. I love the way business is run. I love the different elements and the different disciplines that, whether it's human resources, marketing, operations, things that make businesses run. I discovered that I enjoyed corporate governance, which is part of the guiding principles and how you make your decisions. But I still didn't know. I mean, when I started in the late 90s, it wasn't the buzzword that it is now. But I knew that I wanted to be paid for some kind of expertise in the way I use my brain, because it's the most favorite part of my body. I enjoy that. So when somebody used to ask me when I started my career, where will you be in 5 years? I used to always say possibly running my own company. But I didn't know what that form will be. So I come from a family where business, academia, and community engagement was just always part of the pot. It's not a separation. So I think that's just part of me. Whether I'm always going to be running the business myself or will get into other types of businesses, which is something I'm looking at now. That's something that is always evolving. But I do like the independence and the opportunity as an African and as a woman to create something, because we are in a world where we're not really seen as inventors, as innovators. So it's an area that I really did want to be part of and to see what I can do in that space. And I deliberately wanted to be in the knowledge space because we can create widgets, we can create tangible products, but knowledge, there's something about knowledge. There's a way that we have been framed as a people that depends on knowledge. And it has always been my fascination to be in that space, to see how somebody of African descent and a woman can make an impact in that space, which is why I started Busara Leadership Partners. And Busara means wisdom. It's Swahili. And the fact that we focus on leadership development, strategy, and governance, it's also a way of impacting the leadership level, because we usually say the fish rots from the head. So it is a very, I think, honorable space to be able to influence and try and inspire leaders, whether you're an entrepreneur or a corporate leader or a political leader, to do better, to be more effective, especially for the African people.
So when you started your career, you said in the 90s, what was the entrepreneurship climate like back then?
Well, in South Africa especially, when we grew up as kids, you did know business people in townships. So you knew about Shabalala, you knew about Maponya. I grew up in Natal as well. So one of my friends is Kanye Itlomo. And so she also, so we knew people that were business people. So my relatives, my grandpa was actually in Vryheid before apartheid came to being. He owned a hotel. He owned businesses. And so that was just, I don't think we thought of it as this amazing thing or something that was beyond reach. It's just something that people did. When we started working with the new South Africa having come into being, there was a lot of focus on Black economic empowerment. So the structure suddenly was more focused on changing the form, transforming the form of what was seen as white monopoly in terms of the private sector, and how then to introduce Black ownership. So that was really the focus. I think we've gone through different stages, and now the focus is really much on individuals who are passionate about things, who are looking at the world and finding problems and looking at how they can solve those problems, developing products and services to solve those problems, and then developing businesses. So I think we are at the next stage where there's a lot of that. And also I think with technological advancements, we are really much inspired to look for new solutions for the world's problems. But also I think there's an element of wanting to be wealthy. There are just so many stories around the world and case studies. So everybody thinks they can be a Facebook, a Google, an Uber. So there is that element. So there is a different the way we see entrepreneurship now. But there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different stage, a different generation. But it's also exciting. I love the idea of Africa, the sleeping giant waking up. So we quote things that are happening in Kenya and the technological stuff that they're doing there. You love the stuff that's happening in Rwanda. So technology has also really given us a new platform as this generation in terms of how to invent ourselves as the entrepreneurs. So capital is not so much, depending on the service and product, is not so much a hindrance anymore. It looks like we now have to really look at the opportunities, the products and services, and the market, and see how we find our space in that. And for me, that's an exciting space to be.
I know you touched on this a little bit. What are some of the reasons why someone would start a company, or what is a more legitimate reason someone should start a company? Is it because I'm frustrated with my boss at work and I feel like, you know what, let me just go start my own thing? What should be the driving force behind someone really trying to establish?
I'm not very good at should. I'm not.
Okay.
I think I love individualism and I love diversity. So we have many reasons why we do it. There will be a reason when I'm retrenched that I then start something in order to have livelihood. There will be a reason that I found a problem and I wanted to solve it. And I saw a market and I was able to do that. So there are very many different reasons. In South Africa, I think because of a high unemployment rate, there has been a lot of emphasis on entrepreneurship as a way of overcoming this, because I think our unemployment is around 26%. I mean, when you look at even other African countries, in Nigeria, I think it's around 14%. So really, to have unemployment at 26%, it's very high. And amongst that, I think 65% is youth that is unemployed. So we have a huge problem, but it's a global problem. That's the thing. Whether you're in developed countries or emerging markets, entrepreneurship is being touted as one of the solutions. But in what form? Now that is the debate. I mean, we were just talking to somebody because I'm looking at doing a research study around entrepreneurship, and the definitions can be very elitist, where we think, you know, if you are not having employees and creating all those jobs, you're not an entrepreneur. In fact, people tend to look down at you. They forget that even a one-person show most times will be outsourcing. You're still creating livelihoods for other people. So I think we shouldn't get too stuck on definitions. But why we form those businesses, there are diverse reasons for doing that.
You also mentioned that people are now a little bit more attracted to, I can call it maybe the fame of entrepreneurship. You know, you want to be the next Google, you want to be the next Facebook. And someone actually wrote an article with a little bit of a caveat saying there's this thing now called the entrepreneurship porn, the entrepreneurship pornography, which is the over glamorization of entrepreneurship and portraying it, especially in media, as, you know, the glamorous life. But in actual fact, it's not. How do you feel about that?
That's fine. I mean, there'll always be different iterations of things. I don't think we should get too precious about it. Which is why I always focus on the individual. It's up to us. We the ones, if you know you do not have a real need that you're trying to fulfill, you don't have a market, then what are you trying to do? So to call yourself an entrepreneur, I don't see the point. So I don't think we should get too caught up in trying to deflate people. And we're very good at labels. That's not the point. The point is, if there are people that are trying to get into the space for whatever their motivations are they resources? Are there ways that they can make those ventures successful? And that's where the focus should be. I think what I've observed so far in South Africa, we focus a lot on startups. And there's a lot of emphasis on training, which sometimes I think it's too generic. A lot of the work that I'm starting to do is to customize, because one thing I've realized is entrepreneurs become kind of stagnant at some point. There's no growth. And growth only because they have limited skills and ways of looking at the world to help them grow. So, for example, a lot of us, especially of African descent in South Africa, were brought into the space a lot, encouraged by government, to be able to access business from government. So a lot of us became tenderpreneurs, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but you then need to diversify your customer base. There is nothing wrong with getting business from government, because even multinationals do that. But you have to diversify your market. And this is why a lot of us, I feel, are not growing. But there's a lot of emphasis on training, and it's generic training. And I'm finding that the entrepreneurs that I'm starting to work with, actually, it is a mix of education, advisory, and mentorship, where you literally have to help them with knowledge, because there are knowledge gaps. So you'll find somebody who has been running a business for 15 years, but actually cannot even understand their own financial statements, doesn't even understand marketing as a discipline, doesn't really understand operations, but they've been running a business for 15 years. So sometimes it just needs, what I've been doing with a lot of my clients is creating modules. So I diagnose where the problem is, why you're not growing, where the challenges are, and you develop the right solution. So if your shortcoming is in sales, then we'll focus on that. If your shortcoming is in human resources, because as leaders and as entrepreneurs, sometimes you have employees, and if you do not handle your employees well, they're not going to give you the results, that you want. They're not going to help you grow. So I think in South Africa, there are many challenges with regards to, we can't apply the same brush to everything when it comes to entrepreneurship. Everybody's at different phases, and it is now time that we apply the right interventions for the right problems. But you can only know that by really assessing and taking time, and not just thinking you're going to bring off-the-shelf solutions where everybody goes through the same programs regardless of what their challenges are. And there we will have opportunities for growth, because we keep on quoting these stats about the failure rate. We have to find out what is the cause of the failure. One of the clients I'm working with is very much focused on public sector. Her understanding is that to be in the private sector, you need to be white. And it's a real block. So as a black company, she doesn't think she can access private sector clients. I've been working with them since 2016, changing that mindset and helping them and helping their skill set so that they are confident to walk into a boardroom of people you don't know, of a different color, and you share what your value proposition is and how you can help, because that's sometimes what you need to do. So there are many issues and nuances around entrepreneurship in South Africa. It's an exciting space to be, But it's also difficult because a lot of us as entrepreneurs also don't want to invest in ourselves. So we find that you are recycling your own ideas that don't work, doing the same thing over and over that doesn't work, but you will not pay an expert to come and help you resolve. However, we are able to buy the expensive shoes and the expensive cars. And yet we don't see the need for somebody to come and help us in our businesses. So how can we be the next Facebook or the next Google? Because at some point you need to invest in yourself and get the right professionals around you to help you achieve your goal.
I think fundamentally maybe the question can be, is entrepreneurship an inborn trait, or can you learn it? Just like leadership, there's so much debate around whether leaders are born or made. Are there certain qualities that an entrepreneur is born with, or can you learn entrepreneurship actually?
I think there will be some things that you will be drawn to. There will be things that come naturally to you. It's almost like the kids that sell stuff at school. When somebody is a child in the playground, they're selling stuff. That's just whatever their motivations are. There's just something. They don't have time to figure out, do I have business acumen? Do I have good marketing skills? They're just doing something.
Right.
So is that inborn? Yep. So, and some of us who become entrepreneurs after being professional managers first, when you're being a career person, and then will somebody say, because it didn't happen naturally, it wasn't inborn in me? So some of those definitions for me I find limiting, and because you will always find different case studies. When you talk to people and how they became who they became, they all have different paths in terms of how, Bill Gates was creating a computer. Was he necessarily creating a company? He was creating a product. It so happens that a product needs to be sold, or else why are you creating it? So I don't think we should really, because my life is being half academic and half practice, we do get stuck in those definitions and labeling and categorizing. Whichever way you become an entrepreneur, let us support you to be successful. Because you may have the passion. Sometimes you just need the guidance. We always get exposed to the case study of Apple and how he was fired. Steve Jobs was fired from his own company. So the question is, as an entrepreneur, was he born or was he made? Because it was through other experiences that he came back to be a better CEO. So the world has seen Apple, his second visit to Apple, as being successful. But if we say he always had this creative, innovative spirit, was he born an entrepreneur in the first place? So, these are just semantics sometimes. I think we can do much more in the world by focusing on how do we make the businesses that are there succeed. Or if they need to die, then to die. Because I also don't believe that businesses should stay in that form forever. So if you talk about sustainability as an example, for me, sustainability is not necessarily staying in the same form forever. Sometimes you need to kill that form and take on another form for it to be sustainable. And part of where we sometimes go wrong is we hold on too long to what's not working. So a lot of times we get, this is the nice thing I think about studying So there is a benefit sometimes for just getting on and starting a business. And then there's also benefit in studying and learning about how other organizations have come about. So when you learn about Nokia, having been a lumber company, logistics company, became a cell phone company, it had to kill itself in order to survive. It then it became a challenge at some point where it was not innovative enough, and it was taken over by Apple and taken over by Samsung. So when you look at our cell phones, my mother still uses a Nokia, which is so ancient. It's it's not a smartphone at all. So, but you'd think there was a time where every second person had a Nokia. So now you have more Samsungs and Apple, and now there are other brands coming. So this area is very interesting. It's an ever evolving area.
There are a lot of people out there who want to be entrepreneurs, actually, and there's a lot of drive towards entrepreneurship, especially in Africa. When is there a right time for someone to start a business? Like, what should be present for someone to say, I think I'm ready now to start something? Are there any particular components that have to be available for someone to be ready? Like something that we can say entrepreneurship readiness. Is there such a thing?
No. Sometimes, when I look at myself, in November 2008, I was an employee. January 2009, I was on my own. There was no capital. The original idea I had from my MBA is not the Busara Leadership Partners that is today. So there will be different reasons and different opportunities, because sometimes an opportunity can come even before you're ready, and you just have to go with it. So there are no circumstances. Sometimes we overthink it. There will be times where, depending on the kind of business you want to start, there will be challenges in terms of the growth path you're going to go through. But it does not necessarily mean that your timing was wrong, because there'll be different reasons why your growth may happen or not happen. But I don't think there is a perfect time to start a business, because opportunities sometimes present themselves when you least expect it. But there are times where you will have to look and say, is this a viable business? An example, there are times where companies are looking for BE partners, and one of the managers then decides to be one of those and then goes out on their own. Their only client is the ex-employer. Was there a right time for that? An opportunity came. They took it. The question now is, what else should you be doing? The opportunity came. Now, are you just going to be the provider to your ex-employer, or you're going to do something about growing so that you're not as vulnerable? So there are other questions we should be asking around whether it's the right time. So for myself, I was getting into a professional services space. There may never have been the right time, or there could have been a time where maybe I should have gone to a big corporate, being an executive first, get this kind of profile, and then start. Because if you're going to be working with that kind of clientele, you may want to have a particular reputation. But also, that's not a guarantee, because you've only been exposed to a particular corporate. Being a CEO or a executive in a particular organization does not guarantee that when you do form, your company is going to succeed. So there isn't a right time. So what other elements do you have a need that you are fulfilling? Is it the right service or product? Do you have means of reaching the customers? Are they willing to pay for it? I mean, those are the things we should be focusing. The timing, sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong, but you won't know until you get into the business and do something about it.
Now looking back at when you started Busara Leadership Partners 2009 and looking at it now, if you had to go back, what would you do differently?
Nothing. Because the path I have been on is exactly the path that was right for it. A year or two after starting, the way we started is totally different from the way we are now. Because you need to experience the market, get feedback from the market. And the challenge for you is then how agile and flexible you're going to be in responding to the market. Because sometimes what you think the market needs, even if you do all the pre-research before launching a business, sometimes evolves the minute you are in the market and you're experiencing. So what we found is, as we were servicing clients and working with clients, we sharpened and changed our value proposition, and also looked at our areas of expertise and said, as much as when we started we wanted to do this, it's not the right thing for us. The market is not receiving us in that sense. So what should we be focusing on? So that's part of ensuring survival of any organization, that you always have to reassess. The core of you can always be similar. So the area of expertise has never changed. We've always been in the strategy, leadership, and governance space. But we've changed sometimes with regards to the channels. So over the years, we've evolved and we don't just work with multinationals and big companies. We now work with small companies as well, because the need is there, and we discovered that we're quite passionate about growing companies and ensuring that they survive. It also necessitated that we reach them in different ways. So we now can work with investment companies, financing houses, who then ask us sometimes to work with their clients. So your business is always evolving. The way you started and what you thought you're going to be can evolve, even if your core doesn't change.
So as we begin to wrap up our first session, do you have any closing comments regarding entrepreneurship and why it's important?
Well, I think it's important because big companies can actually not create the jobs that we need. So it is just the new norm that we all have to think about providing our own livelihoods. And it's not just, and that's why I sometimes don't want to get too stuck on the word entrepreneurship and the definition. It's a global phenomenon. You look at actors in Hollywood. They're now producers, they're now directors. So people are evolving from waiting for somebody to give them a job to looking at how do I create a brand, which is me, or create a brand, which is a company, which is going to be my means of making a living. So I think that is the focus of the world. And how do we do it? That's where the focus should be.
Dudu, thank you so much for coming into the show. Now, if people want to get in touch with you, learn more about the Busara Leadership Partners, how do they do that?
Busara Leadership Partners, you find us at www.busaraleadershippartners, all one word.
One word, okay.
Yeah. .co.za. Remember the double P. Sometimes people leave the P. Busara Leadership Partners. .co.za.
Okay.
And also we love getting people to join us at least a few times a year. We have events. So those are really the main areas of engagement. When we have events, it will be nice to meet you, and then go and see us on our website, and there is an email address there, and you can get in touch with me, or you can also follow me on Twitter. There's at Busara SA, so Busara SA, or you can follow me as an individual at Dudu Msomi.
Dudu, thank you so much. I look forward to our next session on business sustainability.
My pleasure.
That was Dudu Msomi, the founder and CEO of Busara Leadership Partners, who shared with us her experience on entrepreneurship. If you have any suggestions about the show or want to recommend any future topics and guests, please email me at lekometa@strategycorner.co.za.
Thank you for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and found the material to be of great value to you. If you'd like to get more information about Strategy Corner and the services we offer, please email info@strategycorner.co.za, lekometa@strategycorner.co.za. You can also follow us using the handle @Strategy Corner on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the latest on Strategy Corner. Till next time, goodbye.